Hi there, this is Karin. I am lucky enough to record this week's Professors Providing Professional Development video. Last week, Terry uploaded one, so be sure to go back and look at that just in case you missed it. This week, I'm going to talk to you about divisions of young people's literature. The divisions that we'll cover are children's literature, middle grade/tween, young adult, and new adult. So, children's literature typically cover age ranges 0 to 8. So this would include wordless picture books, regular picture books, easy readers like Ballet Cat. Also, it would include illustrated chapter books like The Princess in Black by Shannon and Dean Hale. Also, early chapter books like The Year of Billy Miller. And on the upper range of children's literature, you'd have books like Ramona Quimby, which is more of, it's a novel, like a novel. Very little illustration, if at all, and mostly, maybe at the chapter headings or something like that, but it's mostly text. Other books that could fit in this category would be, at the upper range of children's, would be like Charlotte's Web or Because of Winn-Dixie. Next, it takes us to middle grade/tween, so 8 to 12 years old. So we have books like the recent winner of a Newbery Honor, Roller Girl graphic novel, Raimi Nightingale, the new Kate DiCamillo, The Thing About Jellyfish, and The Wonderful George. Now, George is also put at an 8 to 12 age range. And so, if you want to look at it, it definitely fits into the upper range of children's literature. But, more often, more of the ages really kind of flow over into this middle grade range. However, where we get into an issue a lot of times is middle school. A lot of people confuse middle school with middle grade. And you see middle school students, middle school is 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So that roughly spans the ages of 11 to 13. So they are not the same as middle grade books necessarily. So looking at some middle school books, you would have drama. Totally takes place in a middle school setting, deals with some romance, deals with some GLBTQ issues. Lillian Duncan deals with an 8th grader and transgender issues. And Gary D. Schmidt's Okay for Now has a main character of 13 years old and is kind of also deals with some tougher topics, some abusive parent, and things like that. So they kind of deal with tougher issues and the older ages, like the ages that are actually kind of in the middle school. So you would want to be careful if you're going to give a middle grade, a person that fits into middle grades, which would be as low as, let's go back here and look at this, 8 years old. You would want to be careful if you're giving them like maybe a drama, which deals with more of the romance and things like that. Young adult, 13 to 18 years old. There again, you might want to, there's some trouble, that middle school age is tough because so many of these books you might want to put in a middle school collection because they might cross over in that age range, that 13 right there. But then you really kind of need to look at the topic of the subject. So like Grasshopper Jungle. Oh, great YA book. But totally not a middle school book because it is filled with language that typically you would not have in a middle school library. Firsts by Lori Elizabeth Flynn. I love this book. But it also is not a middle school, middle grade book at all because it deals with a young woman or high school girl that kind of provides a service to the boys in her school. And what she does is, as she sees that they are about to, they're getting serious with their girlfriends, and they are about to, go all the way and have sex with their girlfriend for the first time, what she does is she pulls them aside and offers to teach them what to do. She is doing this and in order to make sure that the girl that these guys are going to be with have a pleasant and a good experience. And through reading the story, you eventually get to why this is so important to her. And she really learns a lot about herself, a lot about love and relationships and friendship, because there is a boy that likes her, for her, very much. And it's kind of, he's a guy that she kind of has a steady date with every week. Like on Wednesday, they meet at lunch every Wednesday, and have sex. And he likes her and wants to be in a relationship with her, where she doesn't really feel that she deserves a relationship like that. So it's a great book. Nimona, of course, is a wonderful graphic novel that totally fits in the young adult category. And Pushing the Limits, it's the first in a series by Katie McGarry. It's contemporary romance, and it deals with issues of some like foster care and rough gang activity. Her series does gang activity, gambling, violence, and so they're all pretty rough and gritty books. They deal with romance and a lot of times like first sexual experience and other things like that. So now it's not explicit necessarily, but it definitely is in there. So then that takes us to new adult, which is, considered like 18 to 30 years old range. And it came about in 2009 when St. Martin's Press hosted a writing contest because they were looking for cutting edge fiction with protagonists who are slightly older than YA and can appeal to an adult audience. We already know that the majority of YA that is purchased by adults. This new adult is, goes along into that because it definitely appeals to adult audience. New adult books typically deal with recent high school graduates going off to their first college experiences, living away from home for the first time, first major relationship, first sexual relationship. And so definitely these teens, older teens, early 20s for the most part, are dealing with adult issues without, supervision, parents, and in the picture pretty much at all. Sweet Home by Tilly Cole, that's the first book in a series that takes place at the University of Alabama. Football is a major part of this book, and it's one of the football players falls in love with a girl, and it follows their budding relationship. And there are other books in the series, probably maybe 2 or 3 more in this series that follow other characters, side characters from this one. These two, Sweet Home and This Is Falling by Ginger Scott. They're the kind of series that I love, which is, and so is that Katie McGarry one, that Pushing the Limits. They're the kind of series that I love, which is you get your one couple here in this book, Sweet Home and This Is Falling. But then in book 2, it's more of a companion. You almost don't have to read these books to follow along in those stories because it follows new characters, but yet in the same world. And possibly these characters from these first books make an appearance, but they're definitely not the main part of the story. This Is Falling takes place, it's also first college experience. And, oh, if I remember correctly, I believe it takes place in Oklahoma. It's an Oklahoma college. And I want to say two sisters are start off as our main characters, but it really follows one sister. You get the other sister in a later book. But it's just sweet romance. Oh man, it just, makes your little heart pitter patter. Colleen Hoover, oh, wonderful as far as new adult author goes. She has many, many books so if you are not familiar with Colleen Hoover, you need to check it out. Losing Hope. Well, let's see. Hopeless would be one. It's actually high school. Takes place in high school. It's a young adult book, but it's extremely edgy. So I don't know. It's almost new adult. I don't know. It would be young adult. I'm rambling. Anyway, November 9, it is her most recent release, and it is the story of a girl and a guy, and it's been a while since I've read this book, and I'm terrible with character names. But it's a young woman, a young girl who's just graduated high school, and she is considering college or going off to New York and being an actress. She always wanted to be an actress. However, there was a terrible, terrible tragic event that has really altered the course of her life. And she's having a conversation with her father at a diner. And he basically is saying, you don't have a chance to be an actress anymore. So don't even try to do that. And he's like this movie director and stuff, and he's not giving her any support whatsoever. Well, there's this guy that just happens to be sitting in the booth behind her that is overhearing this and is sick of this father treating this girl like this. And he comes over to the booth, sits down next to her, and pretends like he's her boyfriend and just gives her all kinds of support. And, the father is flabbergasted, and this girl is feeling a little bit of boost in confidence because even though she's kind of freaked out, the stranger sitting next to her, she still, is kind of able to say, take that, Dad. They end up spending the day together, and she then is supposed to leave later that day, and they aren't going to be seeing each other anymore. But there's this connection between them. And it's November 9th, and so that's the title of this book, because what they decide to do is meet again the next year on November 9th and meet up and see where each other are and follow along in each other's lives and spend a day together. He tells her that he is an author. He's writing a book. And he is using this kind of scenario to help write his story. And so the November 9th meetings go on for several years, 3, 4 years, 5 years. And, their relationship evolves, it changes, they go through some ups and downs, but it's a tearjerker. It is a tearjerker. There's, of course, a twist in the end that you don't see coming, really. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful book. So those are definitely new adult. Those are new adult books. So those are our categories. The thing that I would want to say, because it's pretty clear which are new adults and young adults and children's. So what I want to urge you to think about is the difference between middle grade and middle school students. Middle school isn't a category of literature, however, remember, but it's a group of students that a lot of times have a hard time finding material that they necessarily like. So much of what they want to read is YA. But yet sometimes they're not quite ready for those YA books. but yet some of the things that are out there for them are too young, and they don't want to read those, because we know kids want to read up. They want to read about kids that are older than them, and that really makes it a challenge for those middle school kids, because sixth grader is a lot different than an eighth grader even. And then just think about if you're giving them a book meant for young adults, which would be definitely for a book that goes up to 18 years old. Wow, that's a huge, huge range. So just think about those middle schoolers. If you have comments or suggestions for future video topics, as always, we encourage you to email us and let us know at pppdkarinterry@gmail.com. And remember, our names are spelled kind of different. I'm Karin, and Terry is Teri. So thank you so much for listening, and we hope to hear back from you soon.